We declare this morning that the King is coming. He reigns forever and ever. Let every eye be fixed upon King Jesus. Let every tribe and tongue prepare the way. Let every heart be filled with expectation, 'cause the King is coming. King is coming.
Open the doors up.
Yes.
Come let the light in.
People get ready.
People get ready.
To worship
Get
Him.
ready to worship
Open
Him.
the doors up
Open the doors up.
of your heart.
Come let the light in.
People get ready.
People get ready.
This morning we
Bow down and worship Him.
we're singing. Holy is the Lord our God Almighty, who was and is
And forever will be.
Worthy of the honor.
Honor and power and glory.
Lift up
Lift up
your praise.
your praise and welcome Him.
Won't you welcome Him in?
King is coming.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm excited this morning. How about you? Oh yes. Death and all his friends have been defeated. Forget all of our guilt and all our shame. Let the people of the Lord shout out in triumph, 'cause the King is coming. Yeah, the King is coming. Open the doors up.
Come let the light in.
People get ready
People get ready.
this morning.
Get ready to worship Him.
Open,
Open the doors up.
oh yeah.
Come let the light in.
People get ready.
People get ready.
We bow.
Bow down and worship Him.
We're singing, holy is the Lord.
It's the Lord our God Almighty.
Nobody like
Who
Him.
was and is.
No one beside Him.
Forever will be.
Ever will be.
Worthy
He's
of
worthy.
the honor and power and glory.
Lift up
Lift up
your praise.
your praise
Come on.
and welcome Him.
Let's welcome Him
The
in.
King is coming. The King is coming.
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 Here comes the roar.
Here comes the roar. As the glory fills the sky.
Thunder and lightning. Yes.
As the heavens open wide. Sing hallelujah. For the Lord is on the move. He's coming back.
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 We're singing, holy is the Lord our God Almighty, who was and is
And forever will be.
ever will be.
Worthy of the honor and power and glory.
Lift up
Lift up your praise and welcome Him.
Oh, we're singing,
Holy is the Lord our God Almighty, who was and is and forever will be.
will be.
Worthy of the honor and power and glory.
Lift up
Lift up your praise and welcome
the
Him.
King is coming.
The King is coming.
The King is coming.
The King is coming.
The King is coming.
King is coming.
King is coming.
King is coming.
Yes, He is. Come on, give Him a shout of praise. This morning, we speak to everyone who may be needing a little bit of encouragement. Just know he won't fail. All of your problems, all of your pain, all of your trouble,
you can give it to Jesus.
Yeah, you can. All of your burdens, even your cares, even your struggles,
you can give it to Jesus.
Here's why. 'Cause he won't fail. He won't fail. He won't leave you. No, he won't fail. He won't fail. He won't fail. No, he won't leave you. No, he won't fail. All of your problems, all of your pain, even your troubles,
you can give it to Jesus.
oh, all of your burdens, all of your cares, even your struggles,
you can give it to Jesus.
Come on, let's say that. 'Cause he won't fail.
He won't fail.
He won't leave you.
He won't leave you.
No, he won't.
No, he won't fail.
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 He won't leave you.
He won't leave you. No, he won't fail.
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 He won't leave you.
He won't leave you.
He won't.
No, he won't fail.
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 He won't.
He won't leave you.
He won't leave you.
No, he won't fail.
Here's how I found out. I seen it with my own eyes.
Seen it with my own
I
eyes.
seen it in my own
Seen it in my
life.
own life.
He keeps every
He keeps
promise.
every promise.
I'll
never be forsaken.
I've seen it with my own eyes. Seen it in my
Seen it
own
in my
life.
own life.
He keeps every
He keeps
promise.
every promise. I'll never be forsaken.
I've seen it with my
Seen it
own
with my
eyes.
own eyes. I've seen it in my own life.
He keeps every
He
promise.
keeps every promise.
I'll never,
I'll never be forsaken.
I've seen it.
Seen it with my own eyes.
Seen it in my
Seen
own
it in
life.
my own life.
He keeps every
He
promise.
keeps every promise.
I'll never,
I'll never be
he
forsaken.
keeps every
He keeps
promise.
every promise. I'll never be
He
forsaken.
keeps every
He keeps
promise.
every promise. I'll never be
He
forsaken.
keeps every
He keeps
promise.
every promise.
Never.
I'll never be
He
forsaken.
keeps every promise. I'll never. You ought to rejoice, 'cause he's always making a way. Woo! Always.
Always making a way.
He's always making a way.
Always making a way.
So he won't fail.
He won't fail.
No, he won't.
He won't fail.
He won't leave
He
you.
won't leave you.
He's not gonna leave you.
He won't fail.
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 He won't leave you.
He won't leave
No, he won't fail.
No, he won't fail.
See, he won't fail.
He won't fail.
He won't fail.
He won't fail.
He won't leave you.
He won't leave you. No, he won't fail.
See, he won't fail.
He won't fail.
He won't fail.
He won't fail.
He won't leave you.
He won't leave you. No, he won't fail.
I seen it with my own eyes.
Seen it with my own eyes.
Every time I felt discouraged,
Seen it with my own eyes.
when I felt like giving up,
Seen it with my own eyes.
here comes Jesus, stepping in right when I need him.
Seen it with my own eyes.
Here comes Jesus, coming through just how I need him. Let the joy of the Lord be your strength today. He's the lifter of every hung down head. In him we move, live and have our being. Be encouraged, cause he won't fail you. He keeps every He won't leave you. No, he won't fail. Can I hear you say that? He won't fail. He won't fail. He won't leave you. Come on. He won't leave you. No, he won't fail. Say that again. He won't fail. He won't fail. Come on. He won't leave you. He won't leave you. No, he won't fail. Say, he won't fail. He won't. He won't leave you. No, he won't fail. Here's how I found out. Because I've seen it with my own eyes. And for that, we're grateful, Lord. Our response this morning is our gratitude with a simple praise singing hallelujah.
Oh, my words fall short. I got nothing new. How could I express all my gratitude? I could sing this song as I often do. Every song was sang, and you never do. So I throw up my hands and praise you again and again. 'Cause all that I have is a hallelujah, hallelujah. And I know it's not much, but I've nothing else fit for a king except for a heart singing hallelujah, hallelujah.
I've got one response. I've got just one move. With my arms stretched wide, I will worship you. So I throw up my hands and praise you again and again. 'Cause all that I have is a hallelujah, hallelujah. I know it's not much, but I've nothing else fit for a king except for a heart singing hallelujah, hallelujah. Come on, my soul, oh, don't you get shy on me. Lift up your song, 'cause you've got a lion inside of those lungs. Get up and praise the Lord. So come on, my soul, oh, don't you get shy on me. Lift up your song, 'cause you got a lion inside of those lungs. Get up and praise the Lord. deserve the glory. You're worthy of it all. Jesus, you're worthy of it all. Only you, God, for from you are all things,
and to you are all things. You deserve the glory. You're worthy of it all. You're worthy of it all.
Only you, Jesus.
For from you are all things, and to you are all things. You deserve the glory.
No matter what,
You deserve the glory.
no matter the circumstance,
You deserve the glory.
no matter the mountain, you deserve.
You deserve the glory.
No matter the challenges,
You deserve the glory.
you deserve it, Jesus. You deserve it, Lord.
You
Oh,
deserve the glory.
that's why we lift it up. You
Deserve the glory.
you deserve it, Jesus. Oh,
You deserve the glory.
that's why we give it. Oh, you deserve the glory.
Come on, do you believe that he deserves the glory? He's worthy of it all.
If this is your first time at Bonita Valley, we invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy the service. If you want some info on BVCC, simply complete our online Connect card. Here's how it works. Scan the QR code you'll find in the seat pocket in front of you with the camera on your smartphone. Open the link that will take you to Connect Card. You'll find a number of connecting options, including first-time guests, prayer requests, I want some info on a Bonita Valley ministry. Check the appropriate connection box you're after. Push submit, and we'll get back to you ASAP.
If you're a first-time guest today, please stop by Guest Central at the end of the service and pick up a special gift bag we have just for you. We'd like to take a few moments to tell you about some things coming up for you and your family at Bonita Valley.
For all middle and high school students, mark your calendars for Friday, July 12th, because Bonita Valley Youth is celebrating Christmas in July. You heard it right. 7th through 12th graders are invited to wear their ugly Christmas sweaters, Santa hats, or Christmas PJs and enjoy a showing of the Christmas movie Noel. And it happens Friday, July 12th at 6 p.m. in the Family Center. Summer is here, and we want to keep you updated on what's happening between Sundays during the month of July. Many of our midweek ministries are on summer break, but will return the first week of August. Those ministries include Dance Fit, Crossbox, and Boot Camp, along with Moms Connected, Divorce Care, and Grief Share. Wednesday night ministries are on break, including Bonita Valley Youth, Bonita Rangers, Bonita Girls Club, and our Wednesday evening service. And our Thursday groups, including BVCC men and women, are also on summer break.
What's happening in July? Glad you asked. On Tuesday mornings at 10 a.m., we host our Prime Timers ministry. On Tuesday evenings at 7 p.m., we host a support ministry called Celebrate Recovery. And Living Hope, our cancer support group, meets on the first Tuesday of July. To stay up to date on what's happening this summer, stop by the calendar online at bonitavalley.com. We believe God has entrusted us to be managers of our time, talent, and treasures. We believe He wants us to use temporary resources to make a real and eternal difference in our world. And that's what giving at BVCC is all about. When we give to God, we see lives change and transform, both others and ours.
There are 3 ways to give at BVCC. Online at bonitavalley.com/giving, by texting Bonita Valley to 833-303-9325, or by mailing your offering to BVCC 4744 Bonita Road, Bonita, California 91902. During our Sunday services, we offer a professionally staffed nursery that will lovingly care for your little one up to 2 years of age. We also offer an outdoor patio area and a family room with TV monitors for parents who choose to keep children under 4 years of age with them.
Pastor Davida and her team lead incredibly fun ministries for preschool and elementary-aged children in the Life Center gym. Bonita Valley Youth also hosts classes at 9 and 11 a.m. for students in middle and high school in the Family Center. During today's service, you can take notes, sign up for events, and even give using your smartphone. Simply use the Follow the Service QR code located in the seat pocket in front of you. Thanks for spending part of your weekend with us.
Storyteller. It's the title of our summer series. As we look at some of the stories Jesus told, we often call them parables. Jesus is the greatest storyteller of all time, and he tells the greatest stories of all time. And why are they the greatest stories? Because they can absolutely change not only our lives, but our eternity. That's a great story. And he told stories a lot. Now, a quick recap from last week, if you weren't here, I'll just kind of catch you up quickly. Why did Jesus tell so many stories? And we're told in the Gospels that he did. Mark says he was never without a story. Matthew says he spent the whole day one time just telling stories because it's part of prophecy. That when the Messiah would come, he would tell stories of things that were hidden from before the world was created, and now they're revealed. So stories are very revealing. And in fact, if you research stories, you will find out that storytelling is one of the most powerful forms of communication. More than any other kind of sharing information or instruction, because stories engage our brains. Movies, books, stories, people's stories. They capture our attention. They keep our attention. Your brain works better with stories because it engages more parts of your mind, your eyes, your heart. And that's why stories are so incredibly powerful, and Jesus used them so very often to help us see things with our head eyes and our heart eyes. Now, some of the stories we'll talk about in this series, some of the parables you've heard before. And the danger of that, for me as a speaker, is you think you already know it, so you kind of dial out. No, listen, when you stop looking, when you stop listening, we stop learning. And there's more to see and more to know, more to grow in, more areas. And this summer, we're going to grow in God through the parables of Jesus. And we'll talk about some we know and some we don't. Last week we talked about a lost and found story that we knew, but there's a lot more to learn. And this weekend I want to set up a story that I think you probably have heard. We'll deal with some that aren't as familiar. But let me set up where we're going to see if I got the right group. How many here, just raise your hand if you have ever struggled with trying to forgive someone. Okay, ever struggled? Now, how many know that forgiveness is easy until you have to do it? Right? Like, yeah, it's easy for somebody else, but you don't know what they did to me. All right. So, second question: how many of you ever struggled with being forgiven by someone? Right? Like they say they forgive you, but they remind you every time you see them. So you don't really think you're forgiven yet. Now, if you didn't raise your hand because you're like, don't feel left out. The people that raised their hand, many of them were raising them about you, okay? So you're the one they were thinking of, so we're all in this thing. So this is a story we're going to look at that is for every one of us. In part because Jesus made a statement that where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, like we are today, there are problems. Well, here's actually what he said. Matthew 18, verse 20. For where 2 or 3 are gathered together as my followers, here's what he says, I am there among them. And that's because there are problems. Many times there are verses or promises that we'll grab and they're powerful, but the context makes them even more powerful as we understand what they're speaking to, what they're addressing. And the promise of Jesus that when you gather in my name. Now, let me be real with you as a pastor. Sometimes preachers will quote that verse when we've only got a handful of people, and it's like, well, nobody showed up, but Jesus is here. Okay, well, that's not exactly what he's saying. What he's saying is, when people get together, they do have conflicts and problems, because just before he says this, he's talking about people we have issues with, problems with, hassles with, and we're trying to get right with them. And how do you do that? How do you go to somebody who's wronged you? And what's the approach you should take? So the whole context of saying, when you gather together, I'm with you, was within the context of when you're trying to sort things out. When you get sideways with people, they get sideways with you. And he says, know this, that when you're trying to forgive someone and trying to be forgiven by someone, that I'm right there, that I'm with you, that I will help you, that I'll be right there in the midst of all of this. Now, what it was reminding us is, how many know that good people can have problems with good people? How many pray, God, make them good and then make them nice? Because good, anyway. So, just to help you know that I'm real, my wife Jill's real, my family's real. Like sometimes people think like pastors are like, no, listen, we're real. So, real quick story. I'll tell you a story on my wife. Now, that's a brave thing to do, right? And I'm a brave man. I'm also a stupid man. So I'm going to share a story on my wife, okay? Like this is what my wife did. So, well, we kind of both did, but here's the story. So when we first got married, we're traveling as evangelists. We recorded some albums. We would sing at churches that I would speak. And it was like really early in our marriage and our traveling. We're in Oregon. We're at a church, and we did a morning service. We're coming back for the night service. The pastor was away. So we're in the office between getting ready for the evening service, and there's a phone call. They knock. They say, it's for you. Well, it's not my office. And what happened was someone had been in the morning service, and they couldn't come back that night, and God really challenged them and stirred them, and they wanted to talk and pray with the speaker, and so they put them through to me. So they get on the phone, they start talking to me, and they're really kind of broken, and they said, I need God in my life, and would you pray with me? And yeah, I mean, that's exactly what it's all about, right? Great. So how many of you, when you pray, you close your eyes? Now, you don't have to. There's nothing sacred about closing your eyes, but it's like kind of dials in. So I close my eyes, and I start praying for this person who wants to accept Jesus. And all of a sudden, I'm aware that, well, my wife Jewel I got my legs crossed, and she spots a hair on my sock. Well, it wasn't on my sock. It was attached to my leg, but she just thought it was on my sock. How many of you are glad when your wife helps you out? She tries to pick things off your clothes, and she thought maybe it was, so she's going to help me. And it was a good-hearted, she didn't want a hair being on her husband's sock, and so she's going after that thing, but it's still attached. So I got my eyes closed, and my leg she's pulling my leg. It's like she's jerking my leg, and I'm trying to shake my leg to get her to stop, but I can't say, could you stop, because I'm praying for this. So in Jesus' name, she's still, so that's what's going on, right? So the guy accepts Jesus, I hang up. And then, like, what are you doing? Now, I knew I didn't mean to, but I was a little more forceful than I should be because I saw the hurt on my wife's face. And she wasn't trying to hurt me, but it was her fault. Well, it was kind of both of us. So good people can have problems, and marriages can have conflicts. Conflicts don't mean it's bad. Conflict means face to face, and face to face there can be things that need to take place. And the Bible talks about iron sharpening iron. It means it rubs together, and people can rub us the wrong way. How do we work through the hurts that happen? How do we work through the unintended? How do we work through the intended? How do we work through the stupid things? Well, that's what Peter asked Jesus. He follows up. I love Peter because he asked the questions we would want to ask. And so Jesus is talking about, I'll be with you when you try to work things out. I'll be in your midst. So Peter follows up with this question, Matthew 18, verse 21. Peter asks, Lord, how often should I forgive someone who sins against me? 7 times? We're talking about correcting things and figuring things out. How often should I do this? 7 times, he asks. No, not 7 times, Jesus replies. But 70 times 7. Not 7 times, like 490 times. And it doesn't mean count 490. It means that phrase 70 times 7, as many as it takes. See, here's what's happening. Jesus is talking about forgiving and getting right with others. And for Peter, that was a math problem. How many times do I forgive him? 7 times, he says? Now, let me tell you where that comes from just real quickly. Many of the rabbis during this time were teaching that you only had to forgive someone 3 times for the same thing. Now listen, my wife, she's not pulled hairs out of my... First of all, I seldom wear socks now, and I have no hairs on my ankles. So for those... That's not totally true, but you don't do the same thing over and over. But how many times do you forgive somebody for the same thing? Well, the rabbis taught, based on Amos 1 verse 3, the book of Amos, God repeats a phrase, 3 times, forgive 3 times, forgive 3 times, not the 4th. And so they took that to mean you only forgive 3 times. So Peter is saying, Jesus, I've been hanging out with you for quite a while now. I'm not the same old guy I used to be. I used to forgive 3 times. Now I'm going to forgive 7 times. I'm going to double it and add 1, the perfect number. And I think, my opinion, he expected Jesus to go, Peter, you are growing up. But he doesn't say that. Instead, he says, no, it's not a math issue, it's a mercy issue. It's not about a right number, it's about a right heart. And he says, let me tell you a story. So he shares a story that I think you've heard, but we need to hear it with new eyes, new heart, new mind. Here's the story. It's found again in Matthew 18, picking up the verse 23. This is all part of the same context. Therefore, Jesus says, the kingdom of heaven can be compared to a king who decided to bring his accounts up to date with servants who had borrowed money from him. In the process, one of his debtors was brought in who owed him millions of dollars. And some of you might have an older translation, and you'll see 10,000 talents. A talent was a money. Let me explain this real fast. I'll not do this all the way through this story, and we'll never get through it. But there are some things in the story, and the newer translations will say like $10 million. They'll try to help us with this. One talent was an amazing amount of money. It was a lot. Okay? So 10,000 was just an astronomical number. Let me explain. Historians tell us during the first century, during this time in which Jesus was telling this story, that Rome would collect taxes from Israel, from all of the places where it had conquered and ruled. And the yearly tax for all the nation of Israel, Samaria, Judea, all these areas, the yearly tax for the entire area was 600 talents. Okay. Jesus said this guy owed 10,000. We are talking national debt size debt. We're talking, if you've seen the debt clock of the States, like trillions. This isn't millions, billions, or trillions. Jesus, when he uses this number, is just blowing there. Here's the literal zillion. He's talking about zillions. So when he talked about how much this guy owed, the audience went, he's in debt. Exactly, I want you to see who's in debt. And he continues. He couldn't pay it, verse 25, so his master ordered he be sold along with his wife, children, everything he owned to pay the debt. But the man fell down before his master and begged him. He begged, please be patient with me. I will pay it all. Yeah, right. Then the master was filled with pity for him, and released him and what? Forgave his debt. But when the man left the king, he went to a fellow servant who owed him a few $1,000s. Some translations will say 100 denarii. A denarii was 1 day's wage. So we're talking about 3 months. You could pay that back. He grabbed him by the throat, demanded instant payment. His fellow servant fell down before him and begged for a little more time. Be patient with me. I'll pay it, he pleaded. Well, you heard that somewhere before. But his creditor wouldn't wait. He had the man arrested, put into prison until the debt could be paid in full. When some of the other servants saw this, they were very upset. They went to the king and told him everything that had happened. Then the king called in the man he had forgiven and said, you evil servant, I forgave you of that tremendous debt because you pleaded with me. Shouldn't you have mercy on your fellow servant, just as I had mercy on you? Then the angry king sent the man to prison to be tortured until he had paid his entire debt. Don't miss, that's what the Heavenly Father will do to you, Jesus says. If you refuse to, what? Forgive your brothers and sisters from your, what? Don't miss that phrase. From your heart. Forgiving is not a math issue, it's a mercy issue. It's not a right number issue, it's a right heart issue. It's not how many times, it's how do I do it? And Jesus helps them and he helps us. I want to help you with this because listen carefully, one of the biggest reasons for many of the biggest problems we face, and I mean this physically, emotionally, relationally, spiritually, at the heart of some of the biggest issues we face, and one of the reasons that I chose this parable for this Independence Week is because this parable is the key to our independence. Not from God, it's our freedom in God and with God. And I want to walk you through just for a moment what Jesus is showing us because stories show us things. And I want to show you 3 things Jesus shows us, that they're literally 3 keys to having the right heart we need to be forgiven. It takes a right heart to be forgiven and a right heart to be forgiving. So let's go. Here we go. Here's the first. The first key to having a forgiving heart is experiencing God's forgiving heart. You can't give what you don't have. So before God says forgive others, he forgives us. And this story is an amazing story of God's forgiveness. I think Jesus' audience was first blown away with a couple things. I think they were blown away with how generous the king was. Like, who loans $1 zillion? And this king was incredibly generous, and so is God, but he was also very conscientious. He knew exactly what he had loaned out. And he loaned out the money, and he asked for an accounting. It's like, how are we doing with this? I think the second thing that probably blew the audience away is, how do you blow $1 zillion? Come on, how many of you see people, they're millionaires, multimillionaires, these ball players, pro athletes, and they make $50 million, $100 million, and they're broke. You go, how? How do you burn through $100 million? That's what they were wondering about this guy. Now, maybe this guy invested his money with this guy. Bernie Madoff. Some of you recognize this guy. 2008, not that long ago, it was discovered he was running the biggest Ponzi scheme probably in the history of the world. This guy was known, Wall Street, ran all kinds of things, high rollers, smart people. This guy ripped people off an estimated $65 billion. So maybe he invested with a Bernie Madoff kind of guy. Or maybe he invested in cryptocurrency with this guy, Sam Bankman-Fried, or Fried as I could call him. From 2019 to 2022, his investors lost an estimated $10 billion before it all kind of caught up with him. And the reason I share these pictures is Bernie Madoff died in prison not that long ago, and Sam Bankman-Fried is in prison right now, and this guy in Jesus' story was on his way to prison. Because it's all about misusing debt and money, and he lost it all, and he's called to an account. And the king was within his rights. In biblical times, you couldn't declare bankruptcy. They just threw you in debtor's prison until you could pay it back, or your family wanted you out and they had to somehow come up with the money. But the man throws a Hail Mary. You know, Hail Mary it's not about being Catholic, it's about throwing this pass into the end zone, and you hope the last minute that somebody will catch it and you'll win the game, and it almost never works, but people try it. And so he throws a Hail Mary request, and he falls on his knees. He owes $1 zillion. He could not pay back in $1 zillion years, and he begs the king for more time. I'll pay it back. The king doesn't give him more time, but he gives him what he needs, which is mercy. Mercy is giving you what you don't deserve. He gives him what he doesn't deserve. He gives them, he takes away what he has done. He mercies him. He gives him pity. Watch this, Matthew 18, verse 27. And then his master was filled with pity for him and released him and, say it out loud, forgave his debt. Forgive, the Greek word used here means, here's the meaning of forgiveness is to release from a debt. That's really what it means. So you owe me. And the rule is you owe, you pay. And God says you owe and I'll pay. The deal is mercy. He was mercy because he could never have done this on his own. So his debt is canceled. It's erased from the books. But if you know anything about debt, how many know that if your debt is canceled, it's because somebody else paid it? It doesn't disappear. Okay, if you owe a lot of money, somebody cancels it, it's because somebody paid it. If they wrote it off, they wrote off a loss. See, that's how it works. Now, our government hasn't quite figured that out. No, actually, our government has figured it out. And the trillions of our debt, I'm not going to go into economics, but let me just say this. See, all this debt we're running up, somebody's going to pay. And we already are. The government can print money. Well, they can print money, yeah, but then the money you have is worth less, so everybody's paying. And all this stuff, ever heard the statement, there is no free lunch? Well, let me tell you, because some of you haven't. There is no free lunch. And so there's a payment due. And in the story, the king paid the man's debt. And in our story, it's God. When God frees us from an eternal debt, it's because he's paid the eternal price. Now, Chuck Colson, some of you remember the name, passed away a few years ago, started Prison Ministry Fellowship. He'd actually gone to prison. He was a Washington lawyer, president's lawyer, got involved in, some of you remember Watergate, and it's a whole long haul deal. And he was not a Christian, and he was mean, and he was the hatchet man, but he's headed to prison, and before he goes to prison, he has an experience with Jesus and accepts Jesus, and many people, it's just this prison conversion thing. No, Jesus changed his life. He wrote a powerful book about it a number of years ago. I have it in my library. It's powerfully written and incredible story. It's called Born Again. That's what happened to him. And then he becomes a prison advocate and for prisoners, and prison fellowship has gone around the world. In fact, not only have they ministered, and he's ministered to prisoners all over the world, but in Brazil, the government gave Prison Ministry Fellowship one of their prisons to run on Christian principles. If you've seen some of the pictures of prisons in South America, some of them, it's incredible. No prison's a great place to be, but some are worse than others. So they gave this Christian fellowship. They said, we'll give you this prison. We'll let you run it with Christian principles. You're in charge of it. In fact, there's only 2 guys in charge of 750 prisoners. Even the guards in the prison were guards, were volunteer guards. But you could only be in this prison if you followed the Christian principles of the prison. And it became an amazing place. In fact, here's what Chuck Colson wrote about it. When I visited the prison, I found the inmates smiling, particularly the murderer who held the keys, opened the gates and let me in. Wherever I walked, I saw men at peace. I saw clean living areas, people working industriously. The walls were decorated with Bible verses from Psalms and Proverbs. My guide escorted me to the notorious prison cell once used for torture. Today, he told me that cell block houses only a single inmate. As we reached the end of a long concrete corridor, he put his key in the lock and paused and asked, "Are you sure you want to go in?" Of course, I replied. I've been in isolation cells all over the world. And slowly he swung open the massive door, and I saw the prisoner in that punishment cell, a crucifix, beautifully carved by the inmates, the prisoner Jesus, hanging on a cross. He's doing time for the rest of us, my guide said softly. See, everybody's got to do time for the crime, but Jesus did it for us. Somebody paid your sin bill. God couldn't just say, it's gone. It had to be paid for. There's no kind of country Christian song. I'm not going to sing it, but I can do country. And the song says, he paid a debt he did not owe. I owed a debt I could not pay. I needed someone to wash my sins away. And now I sing a brand new song, Amazing Grace. Jesus Christ paid a debt that I could never pay. When you've experienced his amazing grace, the song is so different because you've experienced it. And you'll never give amazing grace until you've received it. So Jesus, before he tells us that we can have a forgiving heart, says you've got to receive and know that your Father has a forgiving heart. I told you in all these parables we're going to walk through, and we'll go through several in this summer series, watch for God, because God is the central character of every story. As I told you, one writer calls it the autobiography of God. If you want to know how God thinks, how God acts, the truths of God, the ways of God, the principles of God, they're all in the stories. Stories to show us God. So Jesus, last week it started with showing us the Father, not the runaway son, the Father, the prodigal father. And this time Jesus says, I want you to see this. I want you to see this King. I want you to see who God is, who forgives debts you can't imagine. That's the first part. I've got to receive from a God who forgives my debt. Here's the second. The second key is experiencing God's forgiving heart, is to recognize our forgiving needs. Second key, I must experience his forgiving heart and recognize, listen, every one of us have two forgiving needs. The need to be forgiven, because we've all messed up. If you don't think you've messed up, your first need is to know how badly you've messed up, because we all have more ways than we begin to know. And the second is we need to forgive. I have a need to be forgiven, and I have a need to forgive, and the debtor in Jesus' story struggled with both, and many of us do as well. All right, it's just us, let's get real. I'm not that bad. Like, I'm in church today. I'm better than that guy. I'm better than them, because no, God isn't great on a curve. Jesus tells another forgiving story, and we don't have time to go there, but another story about someone who's forgiven a lot, they love a lot, and they're forgiven a little, and they love a little. His real point was, we've all been forgiven a lot, we just don't all know it. Someday you'll stand before Jesus and realize how much he did for you and me, and how much you and I owed. And so we got to realize, and this man in the story didn't get either part of that. How do I know that? Because again, when he's called before the king to pay up or to give an account, what is he? He doesn't plead for grace, he pleads for time. See, this guy was on the works plan, not the grace plan. Give me time and I'll work it out. God, I can do this myself. He could never do it himself. And so God does not give him time, but he gives him grace. But he didn't really receive it. Let me tell you something. God has graced all of us, but all of us have not received his grace. All of us have not received it personally. And let me tell you what happens when we pass on God's grace. We'll put it on the screens for you. When grace is rejected, bitterness is born. When you reject the grace of God, bitterness is born in our hearts. And Jesus shows us in this story. There's some telltale symptoms of missing grace and bitterness. Jesus doesn't say, here's 1, 2, 3. He just shows us in a man. And I want to show you in this man and see if you recognize any of these in others or in yourself, in myself. And here's one of the things we see in this man. Here's a symptom of passing on God's grace. It is harshness. This man has been forgiven of a $1 zillion debt, and he grabs a man by his throat who owes him 3 months, throws him in prison, says, pay me back. Now, there's intelligence for you. How can I pay you back if I'm in prison? But he throws him in debtor's prison for 3 months, back rent, back car payment, back camel payment, whatever it was. Harshness. Watch for people that are overly judgmental and overly harsh, and I will show you an ungraced heart. Not that God hasn't graced us, but I haven't received the grace. Real fast, the story of David, King David, you know his story, and he commits adultery with Bathsheba, and then she's pregnant, and then he has her husband killed in the battles to cover the pregnancy, and then he marries her. What a king. Yeah, what a king. And no one knows, and David looks like the good guy in the story, but he wasn't. And God knew it, and David knew it, but it looked like he got away with it. It's like, no big deal. It was a big deal. I don't have time to take you to the story, but David was drying up on the inside. It happens. He talks about the fact that when I kept silent about my sin, my bones were drying up. Our inner life just dries up. And then God sends a prophet Nathan to him, and he tells him a story. I referenced it last week. It's a story. See, David had been a shepherd. He tells him a shepherd story, a word picture that just, man, it got David. It got David in a way that nothing else would get David, about a very wealthy man who had all kinds of sheep, going to throw a party. Instead of using one of his own sheep for the banquet, he takes the one sheep that a family has, like their family pet. He takes their one lamb, and he kills it for his banquet, and David is ripped. And David says, that man should be killed. All right, hold it. Now, that was not a good thing to do. But you didn't kill a man for stealing his sheep. But David was, listen to me, he was overly harsh about a sin in his own life. It's amazing how many times the things that tick us off are our issues. And we see them in somebody else. We may not identify them as that. So watch people, watch yourself when you're incredibly, sometimes we're incredibly harsh over things that, areas that we've not been graced or received the grace. The man was not only harsh, he was caused relational disorder. We're told in Matthew 18 that many others were upset. People that are bitter, they create bitterness everywhere they go. They're a lot of fun in the office. They're a lot of fun in the family. Personal imprisonment was the third part. He was thrown into debtor's prison. When we don't forgive as we've been forgiven, we don't lock others up, we lock ourselves up. We imprison ourselves. I just don't have the time. I've been studying for weeks and weeks, and I've been reading about forgiveness and unforgiveness in many books and many studies. Some of our biggest health issues, emotional issues, relational issues, spiritual issues are tied to unforgiveness. One article talks about if you want to get a good night's sleep, just forgive somebody. Because much of what keeps us awake at night are these issues that we can't get free of. And in our minds, our dreams, we wake up, and it keeps us from experiencing order. I don't believe Jesus was saying that by forgiving others, that's how we get right with God. No, we get right with God because he forgave us. Forgiveness, if I don't forgive others, it doesn't cost me my salvation, because that was given to me in Jesus, but it costs my intimacy and my closeness to God, and my intimacy and my closeness to others. It is hard to get close to a bitter person. It is hard to get close to somebody whose heart is full of anger. The good news is that when you and I forgive someone else, do you know the first person gets released from prison? Is us. One of the challenges why God wants us to forgive others is when we forgive others, we unlock ourselves. Many of us, I can't forgive them. No, I've got to forgive them, God says, because that unlocks. How do I do that? As I told you, forgiveness is easy until you have to do it. Now, I have been in ministry for a long time now. I have counseled a lot of people who've gone through unspeakable things. A lot of sexual, I've dealt with people that have been sexually abused and people who abused others sexually. I've been on both sides. I've dealt with people that were so scarred and things happened to them. And I had a man in another state, another church. And he says, can I come to your church? I don't know if you saw the news, but I was convicted of sexual crimes. I'm going to prison for it for quite a while. I can't go to my church. No one wants me, but I need God. Could I come to your church until I go to prison? And I said, yeah, a few conditions. I got to make sure someone is with you just for your accountability and our accountability. But yeah, you're safe to be here, and I'll have someone with you. And it was several months, and we had some times together, and yeah, he messed up big time. And he confessed to God. So I've seen both sides, and I've seen the torment that happens in both sides. And so some of you today, this is not just like, yeah, I'm not talking about somebody cut you off on the road. No, I'm talking about some of the deepest pains and bruises of our hearts and lives. And you're like, Jeff, you're telling me I got to release them? No, God is telling you got to release them. Because when you release them, you release you. How do I do that? God helps us. That's the third part of Jesus' story. The third key to having a forgiving heart is utilizing a forgiving process. Now, I've shared this with you previously, and I'll repeat things again because repetition is how we learn. Come on, how many of you learned your ABCs the first time you heard them? None of you. You're not that smart. How many of you sang the song? I still sing the song when I'm trying to figure out where the letter is. Because you did the song and you learned it, and then when you finish it, you say, aren't you proud of me? Didn't any of you sing that? You are the wrong, I sing it and I'm proud of myself. So we sing this song, we learn the ABCs. And we did that with a process. Events, here's the statement, events are good for a decision, a process is needed for real change. Sometimes we say, I got to lose weight, good decisions. Doctor says you're going to die if you don't, good decision. But the decision won't change me without the process. How do I do that? A lot of things I want to get financially sound. Good decision. How do I do that? I go to Financial Peace University and I learn a process. Everything, everywhere you want to change in long-term lasting ways, you need a process to get there. And so when God says forgive, he not only says forgive, he gives us a process, and it's in this story. And I got to move you through it really quickly. It'll be on in your notes, it'll be online. Here's the process. Let me move through with you. Forgiving first takes truth. In John 8, Jesus says you will know the truth and the truth will set you free. And in the context, his teaching, his words, his principles, you'll know the truth about things because you need truth to be free. So let me give you some quick truths about forgiving because many times we get messed up when it comes to forgiving. The first one is this: forgiving is not forgetting. If you forgive, you forget. No. In fact, you cannot forgive what you don't remember. Forgetting is not the same thing as forgiving. That could just be denial. That can be a fear. That can be all kinds of things. The king didn't forget the man's debt. He knew it. He forgave it because he remembered it. Dr. Henry Cloud writes, to forgive requires that you name the offense, feel the feelings involved, talk about the pain and the anger, and then grieve it because it's a loss. It has to be faced and embraced in order to be worked through. This does not mean railing on someone or going into rages. It means acknowledging how you feel and then working through it. We know clinically that rather than getting anger out, you must own it and work through the causes. In fact, if you don't do that, you'll never get out no matter how many times you try. Anger breeds anger. It doesn't resolve it. Anger is a secondary emotion. Something happened, that's why I'm angry. So to fix the anger, I got to fix what happened. And to fix what happened, I have to face it. So truth is at the core of forgiving. Biblically speaking, forgetting doesn't mean we can't recall it. It means it no longer controls or enslaves us. When God says he forgets our sins, it doesn't mean he doesn't recall them. Half the Bible is about people's sins. God recalled them, but it no longer imprisons us. Because that's the second thing, is that forgiving is not trusting. If I forgive you, I trust you. No, don't. Those are not the same thing. Forgiveness has to do with the past. Forgiveness is writing off a past bill. Trusting has to do with the future. Well, if I forgive, I've got to trust him, I've got to reconcile. No, don't confuse this. Forgiving deals with the past. Trusting and reconciling deals with the future. So don't mix these up. Trusting and reconciling, important, yeah, but it's not the same thing as forgiving. Forgiving is dealing with the past. So I can trust in the future. If you've ever heard the phrase, they earn my trust, it's a good phrase because you never trust anyone who hasn't earned it. I can forgive you but not trust you. In fact, I shouldn't trust you until you prove trustworthy. I shouldn't trust you the first time. There's an entire book, and I don't have time in this message, but I've told you about it. I've read it through it several times because I keep reading through it to learn more from it. Dr. Henry Cloud's book called Trusting, an incredibly powerful book about why many of us trust wrong people and why we get messed up. You can have these 5 principles that will help you kind of, who do I trust and how do I trust? The bottom line is that a person must prove trustworthy by changed attitudes and actions. Matthew 3 verse 8 says, prove by the way you live that you've repented, that you've actually turned around, changed directions and turned to God. It's provable. So listen, someone steals your car, tells you they're sorry, you forgive them, but don't give them your car again until they've proven they're not going to steal it the next time. So trusting and forgiving are not the same thing. So what is forgiving? Here it is. Forgiving is giving up my right to hurt you for hurting me. Forgiving is giving up on payback. Now, there's a lot of reasons why payback doesn't work. One is, it's been proven, we always think our pain is worse than your pain, so how do I know what the pain is even? Getting even is a losing game. Forgiving is always a personal choice to release somebody, to write off a debt as a grace gift. And some of us right at this point go, come on, Jeff, like, yeah, I know we're in church, you're supposed to sound like that, but there's no way I can let them off the hook. And here's the problem with keeping somebody on the hook. The person on the hook is us. When we don't let someone off the hook, we're keeping ourselves on the hook. Sometimes the person who did it to us, they're going on with life like nothing happened, and we're the one who can't sleep and can't eat and transfers all of our anger and hurt and wounds into so many other relationships. The person on the hook of unforgiveness is the one who can't let it go. Forgiving breaks the chain between us and past hurts. Forgiving frees us to live in the present and experience a God-promised future. That's why God says you got to forgive, because it frees you. Here's a second. Forgiving takes time. It takes truth. It takes time. As a boy, C.S. Lewis, one of the great writers, wrote 40 books. C.S. Lewis, books, movies, kids' stories that were really for adults. Chronicles of Narnia. It's a great book for kids, but it's a greater book for adults. He writes about when he was a boy, he had a school teacher that treated him brutally. He and his brother and a lot of other boys. And it scarred him. He literally says this teacher made his life as a young boy living hell. Now later on, Lewis becomes a Christian. And it bothered him that even as an adult, he could not forgive this man. I mean, we're talking 20, 30, 40 years later, he still can't forgive this teacher what he did to him. It was actually a few months before C.S. Lewis died, and he's writing an American friend. He's known for writing letters to his friends. He writes an American lady, and she's struggling with forgiving someone who really, really wounded her. And C.S. Lewis writes her, and neither he nor she knew that only a few months after he writes this note, he died. And here's the note. Dear Mary, do you know only a few weeks ago I realized suddenly that I had at last forgiven the cruel schoolmaster who so darkened my childhood? I've been trying to do it for years. And like you, each time I thought I'd done it, I found after a week or so it all had to be attempted over again. But this time I feel it is the real thing. Yours, Jack. C.S. Lewis went by the name Jack with his close friends. The reason I share that letter is we're dealing with an incredibly smart, gifted, talented writer, Christian, apologist. And he's now late in his life and says, I've been trying to forgive this man my whole life, and I think I've done it, and then something happens and I haven't, so I do it again. So listen carefully. If you release somebody and you're still stuck, release them again. And you do it again. Because sometimes it takes time. It takes time to release from deep wounds, deep debts, deep issues. Which leads to the third key. Forgiving takes help from God and from others. Because you don't have what it takes to really forgive, and neither do I. You don't have what it takes to release from a debt, neither do I, but God does. He did it for us, and He can help us do it with others and with ourselves. That's what Corrie ten Boom, some of you know her story. Corrie ten Boom Dutch lady, her sister Betsy, her dad, living during the time of the Nazi concentration camps. They hid Jews. And they were caught, and they were thrown into the same concentration camps with the Jews. Her sister Betsy died in the concentration camp just a matter of days before they were actually freed and released, and Corey got out, but her sister didn't. Then Corey becomes this powerful speaker, Christian. She travels the world. She writes a book. Her life story is turned into a movie. And I know it's older. Some of you have maybe not seen it, but it's just one of the most amazing stories. Her story is called The Hiding Place because they would hide these Jewish people. And she writes in her book, it was a church service in Munich that I saw him. The former SS man who had stood guard at the shower room door at the processing center in Ravenbrook. He was the first of our actual jailers that I had seen since that time. And suddenly it was all there. The room full of mocking men, the heaps of clothing, Betsy's pain-blanched face. He came up to me as the service was emptying, beaming and bowing. How grateful I am for your message, Fräulein, he said. To think that, as you say, God has washed my sins away. His hand was thrust out to shake mine. And I, who had preached so often that people need to forgive, kept my hand at my side. Even as the angry, vengeful thoughts boiled through me, I saw the sin of them. Jesus Christ had died for this man. Was I going to ask for more? Lord Jesus, I prayed, forgive me, help me forgive him. I tried to smile. I struggled to raise my hand. I could not. I felt nothing, not the slightest spark of warmth or charity. So again, I breathed the prayer. Jesus, I cannot forgive him. Give me your forgiveness. And as I took his hand, the most amazing thing happened. From my shoulder along my arm and through my hand, a current seemed to pass from me to him. And well, into my heart sprang a love for this stranger that almost overwhelmed me. And so I discovered that it's not on our forgiveness any more than on our goodness that the world's healing hinges, but on Christ. When he tells us to love our enemies, he gives us, along with the command, the love itself. When God says, love your enemies, it's because he loved us when we were enemies. And what he gives you, I can't do it. No, you can because he gave you what you need to do it. Paul writes, Ephesians 4, verse 32, be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other. How? Just as in Christ, God, say it, forgave you. See, how can? Because I was given it. And when I give it because God helps me. He never tells me to do something he doesn't help me to do. So first, to forgive, we need the help of God, but we also need the help of others. No one can forgive someone for me, but often I can't forgive without the help of others in my life. Let me try to help you with this concept real quick. We're almost to the finish line, so don't back up and leave yet. I should never tell you that because don't back up. Just give me quick seconds. I don't know if you've ever injured something. I tore some ligaments in my ankle playing basketball when I was playing in college. And my ankle swelled up like 3 times the normal size. They take me to the hospital, they do x-rays. I'd torn and destroyed some ligaments in my ankle. And then I had to go through, how many of you have ever heard of physical therapy? I'm gonna go, yeah, I live there. Yeah, so physical therapy, you go after you've injured something and it's healing. And obviously you can do it on your own, but to heal better, to heal right, sometimes faster, physical therapy helps a lot. There are many athletes who break bones, but they don't set them right and they don't heal right. Like your finger healed, but it's like this, because it didn't heal straight. And as gross as it sounds, sometimes they re-break a bone so it can heal because physical therapy is people can't heal for us, but they can help us heal right. And I want you to know what happens in the physical happens in the spiritual. That some of us need forgiving therapy. And we need a person to help us with the process of forgiving, to remind us that we didn't deserve it or earn it or do it, and we're not excusing somebody, but how do I release them and how do I release me? And they help us do it right, and they help us do it in the right time, in the right way. And sometimes that's a godly friend. Sometimes it's a godly counselor. We have some new counseling ministry we'll tell you about really, really quickly. We're developing a partnership with a counseling center that's doing some counseling out of our offices. We'll tell you more about that because sometimes we need a Christian counselor, a godly counselor to help us with godly healing processes. Doesn't mean we can't do some things on our own, but often it helps to have somebody. They don't do it for us, they do it with us. Please, 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 please hear me. The Bible says there are burdens to bear and burdens to share, and the heavy burdens we're never to bear by ourselves. And forgiving is one of the heaviest burdens we'll ever have. Sometimes we need some help. How will you know when you have finally released somebody? Here's one of the ways. You ask God to bless them, and you mean it. Now come on, here's it. God bless them real good. Or God bless them. Scripture teaches us, Matthew 5, verse 44, Jesus said, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. In this way, watch, you show that you are children of your Father in heaven. If you want to experience an amazing Independence Day, you got to experience the freedom of forgiveness. You got to experience what it is to be forgiven by God and forgive with God's divine help. Jesus tells a story about when people get together, there's problems, there's issues, because we've all got problems. But he says, well, if you want to work through it, it's not a math issue. How many times do I forgive you? You've done it again. No, it's not counting how many times you did it. It's not a right number issue, it's a right heart issue. So I want to help you with your heart. You get a right heart when you first experience God's right heart for you. You got to know that you're the biggest debtor you know, and I'm the biggest debtor I know, and God has canceled my debt. You got to know that. He doesn't hold it against you, that he has paid the debt you cannot pay. You got to live by the grace plan, not the works plan. Because if you don't accept the grace, you get bitter. So accept the grace. Then I develop a right heart when I have truth, when I understand the truth about forgiveness, what it is and what it isn't. A lot of us are confused about what grace isn't. Forgetting something, it's not excusing something, it's not saying it didn't hurt, it didn't happen, it was right, it's not saying any of those things. It's so important to understand that forgiving is giving up my right to hurt you for hurting me, and I'm not letting you off the hook, I'm letting me off the hook. Because unforgiveness will destroy your life from the inside out. So how do I do that? I do that with God's help and with the help of others. God never asks you to do something he'll not empower you to do. When he says release others, it's because he released us, and he will give us, he gets what we need to release. And sometimes you need to talk to somebody else. You need some forgiving therapy. Someone to walk with you so you do it safely, with time, until one day you say, God bless them, and you mean it. Would you bow your heads and hearts with me? God, I thank you for a week in which our nation celebrates freedom. Thank you for the freedoms of our nation. I pray that you would help us continue to be free, but there is no freedom apart from you. And I pray for freedom in this house, and I pray for freedom in every heart. There's some online, some in this house. They have been wounded more deeply than any of us but you could possibly know. There are some here struggling with, how do I forgive him? How do I forgive her? How do I forgive myself? I thank you for this story. And I pray through the power of your stories that you would change our lives. Change our past, change our present, change our future. Heads are bowed just for a moment. If you've never asked Jesus to be the one who forgives your debts, it's a great moment. Simply, Jesus, forgive my debts, forgive my sins. Thank you for paying what I could not pay. And help me to live in and live out your freedom. I pray for marriages, families, seniors, singles, students. And I pray that we would live free and be liberators of others. In Jesus' name.